It is rare when when I'm like watching our movies for these episodes, and like only a couple minutes in, I immediately like text my brother. Was like, "You have to watch this movie." Like the way that it opens up, and it feel like they did the 1970s kind of opening, like all of the pre-movie kind of advertisement stuff is all like 70s vibe, and it feels like this just cool movie. Yeah, I love that.
I texted my wife a half hour into it, and I said, "You made the wrong decision. Like you should be watching this."
Yeah, you're gonna
and it never faltered throughout the movie either. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is like, I'm waiting for the ball to drop. I'm waiting for the part where I'm not going to like it anymore, or there's going to be something I'm going to dislike about the movie, and it never happened.
Never. I would never do that.
Welcome to the Movie Dads podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Howie.
I'm Kyle.
That is Kyle. We are back for episode number 34. The You Need to See This Movie, because it's been out for a few months at least. We're into award season, so we decided we're going to do some of these some of these nominees. So we're doing the 2023 instant classic.
Yes.
The Holdovers. Alexander Payne's The Holdovers.
Instant Christmas movie, I would even
say. It was.
I was not expecting that. I didn't realize that.
Music takes place. The whole movie centers around Christmas. Christmas movie instantly. Yeah.
It's like, fuck, we missed out of the 14 Christmas episodes we did. We did not do this.
3.
But
yeah, so The Holdovers 2023 comedy dramedy, if you will, starring Paul Giamatti and directed by Alexander Payne, who has done some pretty award-winning movies. He's from Omaha, so nice little nugget there.
What other movies has he done?
The Descendants with George Clooney. He did About Schmidt with Jack Nicholson, Kathy Bates.
Okay.
Boy, what else did he do? He did.
Cinematography in this movie was fucking great.
Amazing.
It was like an experience, I would say. Like I mean, obviously we're not jumping right into the movie, but it was great. I really enjoyed it. It was a good movie.
Yeah, and then he did what else? He did Nebraska with Bruce Dern. That one recently. Yeah, so he's done a bunch. Yeah, he's done a bunch of movies. So a lot of, I think he's won an Academy Award for a screenplay for something. I don't remember. He did Election. Remember that one with Reese Witherspoon?
Oh yeah,
that.
The name of it. It's like, I don't remember.
That was actually filmed here too. That was one of his first movies. He filmed it here in town. So
he's holding it down for you Omahaians, Nebraskans.
Yeah. Local dude, does local stuff.
Is that why you wanted to do this movie?
No, I wanted to do this movie because I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I did.
Yes. Yeah, you said you thought it looked good, and I immediately could only think of Paul Giamatti's eyes in this movie, looking in two different directions the entire time.
That's some special effects right there.
That was wild. That was the first thing I was like, I gotta talk about that, because how the hell did they do that?
Yeah, it's
all right. We'll talk. We'll jump into that.
It is right. So anyway, if you're watching us on YouTube, please click that like and subscribe. If you're not watching us on YouTube, hopefully you're listening to us on one of the many podcast networks such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, which is transitioning into YouTube Music. So Google Podcasts is going away. And so we'll be on YouTube Music when that all happens. And then Podcast Index. So if you're also, you can find some of our short clips and videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. But we're Movie Dads. We've got movie kids. Kyle, so this was kind of neat. So I think we've talked about this a few times, how my daughter Reagan, who's 12 years old, is like kind of turned into this like classic rock music buff. Big time. Huge Queen fan. She knows shit about Queen that I bet people that grew up in the 70s don't know. Because she has like dived in. For Christmas, she wanted a record player. She went through like my mom's old box of records and found some old Queen albums. She got Greatest Hits Volumes 1 and 2. She went to Homer's, which is a record store here in town, and she bought like their first album and then one of their other ones from the 80s. Like,
love that.
Worshipped it, right? So Queen did a special engagement IMAX theater showing 2 weekends only, last weekend and this weekend, of their 1981 Montreal concert.
Nice.
And so I got her tickets. So her and I went last weekend. It was so freaking cool. She had a ball, right?
That's
like
awesome. That's so
one
fucking random and
it
awesome.
was right. But it was like I don't know, it was an anniversary thing or what. I don't know. It's just kind of random, but they're doing it here in town. So I got tickets to the IMAX. So you got Freddie Mercury's balls like right in your face.
Jesus.
Which, hey, you know what? When he walked out on stage, he was wearing shorts that like there was no legs to him. He's wearing a red handkerchief around his neck, and he's wearing like a Montreal Canadiens hat. And he walks out on stage, and my daughter's like, "Oh my god." 12, she's so uncomfortable. She's like, "Dad, do you think those people in the front row can see everything?" And I'm like, 100%.
Oh my god.
But we had a good time. It was fun. So, we got to go to see that in the theater. It was a good time. I had a lot of fun. And then Des started basketball last weekend for the YMCA. Had his first game last weekend. Des is very much a ball hog, but he's got a couple kids on his team that are like that too. But they're good. That team is really good. They won their first game like 32-16. Des had 8 points and like 4 rebounds. They won their second game today like 36-12.
Talking about his team is winning.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, they are ridiculous. I think it was 12-2 right away. Like first quarter was bad. And then it just didn't get any better. Oh my gosh. They're so good though. There's some good kids on that team, but a bunch of 7-year-olds just dominating.
That's wild.
Yeah,
love
a lot of fun.
That's
a lot of
great.
fun.
I do remember over the summer, Reagan was very much like nerding out about classic rock stuff. And when all of the kids and all of us were at the pool, we have a pool here. So for those who are listening, and so like music is always blasting in our backyard at the pool. And usually I will throw on some oldies every now and then. I grew up on classic rock as well. And I specifically remember like putting songs on and then like grilling Reagan about them. Like, who is this? Like, what band is this? And she got every single song. So the only thing she didn't get was because she said she hadn't heard it yet or didn't really listen was Bob Seger. I was really like leaning into some Bob Seger tunes with her. And
Seger's one of my favorites. So it's a little disappointing, but I'll have to make sure I correct that.
I will say I wasn't playing like I think it was Night Moves and like
that's the best one.
Yeah, like everybody should know Night Moves, but Seeger's so good. His that they have like a greatest hits or something album that like just always played in their house. Anyways, and speaking of classic rocks, my dad, I mentioned, was really big into classic rock, and he had a ton of records that I picked up a couple years ago that are sitting. There's like 100 of them in this nice little like wooden record rack. So it's like all originals. There's like there's Beatles in there. There's Queen. There's a ton of AC/DC and stuff like that. So maybe Reagan will have to peruse that one of these days and see if she wants to swoop some of them.
She'd get pretty excited.
Yeah, I'll just send that box over the other day, and she can kind of mess around with it if she wants, because it literally just sits there. So, kind of a slow week in our house. We have some friends that are over. They've been going through some like a family situation. They lost somebody, so they've been staying at our house, kind of prepping for that stuff. So we've all just been kind of cooped up, staying kind of quiet. With the exception of Parker has stumbled upon the original Ninja Turtles cartoon, like the old original, and he is like obsessed. So we watched 2 seasons of the original cartoon Ninja Turtles this week, and it's been just great. Like, that show is so good. I don't think people go back and watch that ever, so they don't really remember or know. But it's interesting because the first 2 seasons are super like goofy, colorful, fun.
Yeah.
And then the third season, I believe, and maybe I've talked about this on the episode on the pod before, but after the movie came out, the 1990s movie came out, where it was obviously dark and gritty and it was more serious. The showrunners specifically were like told and asked to go dark and gritty. So they like toned the turtles' skin color closer to the movie, and everything was way more dark and serious. And it wasn't like fun, goofy. It was like more serious Ninja Turtles. So I didn't really pick up on that. I never knew that when I was a kid. So
yeah, I don't remember that either. The first, like when you talked about it when we did Turtles Forever, like when you talked about like how goofy they are in the movie, and it's like, well, that was definitely the early seasons because, and I don't remember them being anything but that. And
same. That's what, like, when we first started watching it, that I started us on, they call them the Red Sky episodes, because when they got serious, all of a sudden the sky was always red. So in all the episodes, but so I started there because it was closer to the 1990s movie, and it's fucking good. Also, the dad from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air doing Shredder is like, what a classic role that man probably didn't even realize he was doing. Like,
James Avery, R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. His Shredder is so great. His
It
Shredder
is.
and even the guy who does Splinter's voice is actually pretty good too. So anyways, so we've been watching a lot of that. Other than that, nothing really crazy in the house this week. Nothing too wild. But yeah, we no sports right now, nothing like that. Grayson's been playing a lot of Halo, but he's moved on to, it's called Halo Wars, but it's basically like a top-down like game. So kind of like Age of Empires, or like the original, not the original World of Warcraft, but there's World of War. You know what I mean? Like, you build your armies and you just select a group of 20 and you send them over here. And so he's been playing that and having a lot of fun with it. So anyways, yeah, that's our house. That's our week. That's Movie Dad Life.
Awesome. Oh, that's good. Good deal.
I'm trying to figure out what is on your shirt. What's you? I know it's a nerd shirt, but what is it?
I was going to talk about that in the next segment. So
perfect.
Segue.
Yeah, why don't we jump into the most excited segment on the pod, our 6 to midnight. This is the thing that gets us up in the morning, the nerd property that we are excited about, with new trailers, new movies, new video games, new comics, whatever that might be. Since you had mentioned you were going to talk about it with your shirt, tell me about your shirt and how it connects.
So the Masters of the Universe Revolution premiered this week on Netflix. It's a new 5-episode series.
Already.
Yeah, it came out Thursday, I think.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it premiered. So it's kind of a sequel series to the series that came out last year? Kevin Smith's doing it. He's showrunner and he's writing the episodes.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, so this is Skeletor, right? Snake Mountain, Skeletor. And Skeletor in the new series is voiced by, nerd king Mark Hamill.
One of the greats.
Yeah.
All Hall of Famer, first ballot for nerddom.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so that is the show of the trailer that you sent a couple weeks ago. That it was fucking awesome trailer.
Yeah.
I did not realize that was a sequel or connected to one of the other seasons that came out.
Yeah. So last year he did the I want to say it was last year or the year before, but it was Revelation was what it was called. Masters of the Universe Revelation. And what it was basically like, that came out in 2021. So it was a couple years ago. it was like a sequel series to the original Masters of the Universe from the 80s, right? Like there was a bunch of different Masters of the Universe. There was the original series from the 80s. Then there was like a 90s, like different kind of animation style one. And so this was a direct sequel to the original series. And it was called Masters of the Universe Revelation. And like I said, it came out a few years ago. A lot of people didn't like it. Animation's great. Voice acting's fantastic. Ton of people in it. But the issue people had is the series. It's been out a couple years now, so spoiler alert. But they kill He-Man in the first episode. He dies.
Oh, I think I watched that when it came out.
Yeah, I think he did. And so he dies.
Honestly, that was my first dabble into Masters of the Universe. So
right, and it was like my favorite show in toy line growing up. I had all of it. I had Castle and all that. But anyway, so he dies, and then like the series kind of focuses on Teela in it, and so that pissed a lot of people off because it was basically like about her, and like, but He-Man of course comes back in like the second half of the season, right? Yep. He comes back and he ends up, Skeletor gets the sword and turns into a god, and it's wild. It's awesome.
I remember now. Yeah, Skeletor's like the bad guy won essentially.
Yeah, essentially. But I loved that series. I thought it was great. I liked what they did with it. So this is a sequel to that, and it's like dealing with the aftermath that happened during that. And so I watched the first 2 episodes last night. I didn't get through all 5, but it's good so far. Again, voice acting's great, animation's awesome. He-Man's still alive in the second episode, so there's that. I mean,
they didn't kill him off again.
They didn't kill him off, but yeah. So that came out. So that was why I was wearing the shirt. So that was part of my 6 to Midnight. And then the other thing I really want to talk about is Academy Award nominations came out last week. They were announced on Tuesday. And obviously we're in award season. We've talked about that a few times. It's the biggest, right, award show for movies. It's the creme de la creme, if you will. So I was just going to go through the nominees for Best Picture, because every year I always try to watch at least the Best Picture nominees. Maybe I can't get a chance to watch every movie that every actor or whatever's been nominated, and I'll get a chance to watch all of them, but I always try to watch the Best Picture nominees, which I've done successfully for the past couple years. But I'm just going to go through that list. So obviously the Holdovers is on there, which we're watching this week. Other Best Picture nominees, and there's a couple that we've already done episodes on. So Oppenheimer, which is probably the award's favorite because it's got the most awards so far this year. It is. It's sweeping pretty much. Let's see what else. Killers of the Flower Moon, which was another movie that we did a review on, and then American Fiction, which is something I think we're going to try and do an episode on before the Oscars. The Barbie movie, Poor Things, Maestro, Anatomy of a Fall, Past Lives, and Zone of Interest. So those are the nominees for Best Picture this year, and I'm going to try and watch all of them. And right now I am at 5 of the 10, so I have 5 left to watch.
I will say that looking at that list, there are some that look really boring. I just don't like. I love and I hate how they pick Best Picture movies every year. Like, it almost feels like they've got to throw a couple like shallow and pedantic movies in there just to do it. And it's like, who's fucking watching this movie?
I like award shows, like just the big ones. I don't watch like Screen Actors Guild or Critics' Choice. I don't watch all that stuff. But I like award shows. I'll watch the Golden Globes and I'll watch the Oscars and stuff. And I like, because that's when you're into movies and you're like us. And like, when Leo won his first Oscar, like everybody that was cool, man. I wanted to see that stuff. When Heath Ledger won his Oscar for Joker after he'd passed away, like, that's why I watch that kind of stuff. Right. And I know a lot of people don't like it because it's like the rich, patting the rich people on the back. I get it. But at the same time, like, I'm kind of going off here, but the weirdest thing to me is like when you look at these Best Picture nominees, and I know there's movies on here I'm not going to like. I know I'm not going to like some of them. It sometimes blows my mind the disconnect between critics and audiences. Both ways.
For sure.
Both ways, right? There's movies where critics are just like, this movie's crap. And then like audience scores, like, you know, we're talking about Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience score would be like upper 80s or 90 in the audience score. And like, I don't understand why critics didn't like this movie. And then there's movies that critics love, and I watch it and I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, what is wrong with them?
And like, and I'm not trying to crap on any of these movies, but I already know I'm gonna dislike Poor Things because I've never seen whatever the dude's Yorgos Lanthimos, the Greek director. I have seen multiples of his movies, and I have hated every single one of them.
Yeah,
except for one, which was The Favorite, which Olivia Colman won a Best Actress Oscar for. Emma Stone was in that one too. I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. It's weird. They're weird movies. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how the disconnect works sometimes. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It is bizarre. And it's like, because I feel like every year there's movies that we wish were like, why can't they put that in Best Picture? But then they have these fucking 4 other movies that are hella random that nobody's watching. But like, I know fucking Godzilla -1 isn't going to be in the Best Picture nomination, but like, it was that good of a movie to me. It was
but good. I don't understand why that movie's not nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. It's not. Dude, why not?
It is nominated for, I think,
visual effects.
Yeah. Which
we talked about previously, how good those visual effects are on a $15 million movie.
Yeah. I wonder if they're more like, this is the best looking movie for the least amount of money ever, and we need to give it an award for that, or if they're like, this visual effects is so fucking good. Yeah, love that. I mean, award season for me, like, I mean, now that we're doing a movie podcast, I will be better at watching all of them. But like last year, I watched most of them. There was a couple I didn't. It's been like that the last couple of years.
I think the year before you and I watched, I think we watched all of them. In 2021?
Yeah, maybe we did. Yeah, because you, I only had done that because you had texted me about it and was like, this is what I'm doing. I'm like, fine, I'm going to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
And then I distinctly, we were texting back and forth of like what we thought of it.
I really think that was kind of the process that started this podcast.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it was that, because we started doing that, and then we would try to watch them the same night.
Yeah.
Talk about them, and it was like, we could do a podcast doing that kind of stuff.
We could talk through these.
Yeah.
So primarily, it was me trying to deconstruct movies that I liked that were so over my head. I'm like, oh my God, this doesn't make sense. Or the one movie that everybody fucking loved that I like nothing about. Was it the pizza movie? Something pizza or
Licorice Pizza. And fucking, you and I both were like, I don't get it.
Why? Licorice Pizza. What a fucking weird movie about an older woman fucking being into a high school kid and people praising it for being a good movie. Barf. Cool. Love that. So for me, my 6 to midnight, the thing that has been getting me up this week has been, or at least the last 2 weeks, has been the new True Detective season that dropped. Holy shit. True Detective is fucking awesome. It is so good. You and I have talked a little bit about this in the past. I think your words were like, it's the greatest. The season 1 is like the greatest TV show like ever made. Like a single season.
It's not the greatest series ever, but the greatest single season of any show in the history of television is True Detective season 1 with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson,
which is good.
It's a golden 11.
It is a golden 11. And I remember when that originally came out, like my friend Bradley was a really big nerd about it, would talk about it all the time. My wife and I, we had started the first season. We watched most of the episodes, but I don't think we ended up finishing it. And we definitely didn't watch the second and third season, which is probably not helping my argument for you have to go watch this show right now. But listen, these shows, True Detective, what's cool is it's self-contained seasons. So it's not like following the same characters throughout. It's just one start to finish story of some crazy, murder, crime type stuff and mystery. There's a little bit of like of like Cthulhu type vibes, like I guess more in this fourth season, not to give anything away because it's very clearly that's in the trailer, but there's like overarching like I'm trying to think of like mystical. It's all grounded in realism, but they do a good job of like putting kind of the creepy vibes in with season one. They did a little bit with like cult stuff, and then this one they kind of lean in it too. So anyways, you don't have to watch season 1, 2, or 3 to start number 4. It is it's in a tiny little town. There's a sign in the first season as they're going into town that says like welcome to the end of the world. And it's basically saying like it's the furthest town way up in Alaska. Like you start right whenever the long night starts. So basically in Alaska, the sun goes down and doesn't come back up for like 30 days or something like that. Jodie Foster is the lead actress in it, and she plays like the chief of police. There's like a science lab that's out like way out on the ice, like outside of town, that the town doesn't really know much about like who they are and what they do. The scientists stay very like reclusive out there. And then like somebody dies or disappears, I should say. And it kicks the kind of show off of like, it's a town where clearly things don't happen very often. And now this crazy thing is going down and Jodie Foster is trying to like find out why and figure out who's where. And I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to jump into it, but it's so freaking good. There's 2 episodes out. It comes out on Sunday night. So episode 3 will be out tomorrow. You have to watch this show. Even if you haven't watched 1, 2, or 3, it's like, I feel like every couple of years we get a show that comes along and it's like, it just like everybody's watching it, or it's just so good that everyone's talking about it. Like Game of Thrones was one. True Detective season 1, I think, was kind of like that too. As of course I say that and I can't think of like other shows that have been like that, but
I think Breaking Bad was like that a lot. Like everybody watched Breaking Bad.
Yes, I would even say like How to Make a Murderer. Wasn't that like a Netflix show that like How to Make a Murderer?
I know what you're talking about. I know what I don't remember that. That was a while ago. But like Tiger King, when that came out, like everybody watched Tiger King.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That it's like this phenomenon. I think that this show is that good that it's like you have to watch this, and if you don't, you're crazy. It's the first time in a long time that I've been like excited of like, when the fuck is the next episode coming out of this damn show? So, and it's old school in that it just comes out once a week. It's not like Netflix where it drops a whole season and you can binge through it. So, but yeah, you got to watch it. It's actually kicked off me going back into watching season 1, and you are 100% correct. Season 1 is so freaking good. It's so interesting. I love that this show like gets these like powerhouse actors for this one season. Like Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson was season 1.
Season 2 is Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn.
Season
3 was Mahershala Ali was the main character.
If I remember right, I think season 3 is in Sacramento. I think people were talking about it because it was like Sacramento. That might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And then this, obviously, Jodie Foster. So like they get these big actors to do a series, which is usually not normal.
And she's one of those actors too that's like very picky about what she does. She always has been.
Very much so. I think will love this because it really leans into trying to kind of be like The Thing, like the original The Thing. That's the vibe you get, like just
really.
Yes. Like I mentioned, there's like science lab that's out there. There's trying to study stuff. The mysterious fucking people disappearing. It feels like The Thing meets like Fargo, I guess would be the best way to explain it. So
two awesome movies,
dude. It's so good. I'm telling you, the second you watch it, you're gonna text me immediately and be like, "Holy shit, this is fucking good!" And I can't wait to talk to you about like the spoilers, things that are going on. Anyways, that's what my 6th Midnight has been. nothing new with video games. No movie trailers that have really come out that I'm like, holy shit, I can't wait for that. Yeah, that's pretty much that's it. Why don't we jump into the movie?
All right. So no, that's great. I like all that stuff. But that takes us into our you need to see this movie, the 2023 award contending instant classic, The Holdovers. So The Holdovers came out in October. So it's on streaming now. So you can catch it on Peacock. You don't even have to pay for it. So it's if you have Peacock, you're done. Or you can, it's available to rent on like Prime or Roku or wherever you're, Apple TV, wherever you rent through. 2023, it's comedy drama. Funded by Miramax, but distributed by Focus Features. Directed by Alexander Payne. Written by David Hemmingson. Starring Paul Giamatti, Divine Joy Randolph, and Dominic Sessa. Hopefully I pronounced that right. In his film debut, he plays Angus, who's like the kind of the main character.
Character, angsty teen.
Obviously, this movie was on several top 10 lists of the year, nominated for 5 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Best Actor for Paul Giamatti, Best Supporting Actress for Davine Joy Randolph, Best Original Screenplay.
She was great.
She was amazing.
Played a fucking great character.
She did. They all did, and I know we'll get into that. But original screenplay and then editing. So I will say this: like, it was a movie. I remember when I saw the trailer, and it had a very 70s vibe trailer when it came out, right?
Yeah,
and even like the beginning of the movie, you can see like it's like an old film. It like gives you the old background.
It's literally like a movie, like you're watching a 70s movie.
It's kind of like when you're watching a Tarantino movie, right? And he has like the old like film reels and like stuff like that at the beginning. It was very much kicks off like that. We won't do a spoiler warning, but so we're just going to kind of go into it. So if you don't want to hear it, I'd say get out now. But it's a movie that's been out for 3 months. It's been a movie that's been out for 3 months, but Paul Giamatti's amazing in this movie. So he's absolutely fantastic. And he's always kind of been one of those actors that I think was really underrated. And I hope he's so good in this that it really, like, people realize how freaking good he is.
Dude, this movie was... So in a previous life, not too long ago, I worked in higher education for right about 10 years, a little bit more if you count when I was a student worker, at a small college. And this movie just like took me back to like being a staff member was for multiple colleges. It was so cool. Paul Giamatti plays... Like, I know professors that were him. They're these old school curmudgeons. They stick to their guns. I've literally had to kind of go through situations with professors and stuff as a staff member they're unforgiving, they're old school, and he just does such a great job of capturing like just a tenured faculty member who's been there forever, but obviously he is very quirky. He's got some like interesting kind of traits about him that I thought would just they made the movie, like they gave it so much character. And we talked about it earlier. He's got like, they call him Walleye, but he's got his eyes are literally going in 2 different directions the whole movie. And I have no idea how they did that. Did he wear a green screen contact that they messed with? Did they make a contact that had the eyeball, like the iris, a little bit off to the side, and maybe the other part whited out? I don't know. But the whole movie...
That's my guess.
It was crazy. The whole movie, his eyes were in different directions. And I don't know why they made the choice to do that. That was like such a random thing to add to his character, but
it's perfect.
It's so good. He's so goofy. there's a part where he tries to pick up a football and throw it, and it tells you so much about him, because he like can't even throw a football. He's dorky as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I know you're going to give a little bit of kind of an overview of what the movie is about, and then we can
You're
kind of
good.
jump into it.
It's perfect what you're talking about. But yeah, so the movie starts off. He's this old school curmudgeon of what he teaches, like civilizations,
Yeah,
right?
ancient civilizations.
Ancient civilizations. He's super awkward. He obviously, every student in the school hates his guts. There's a scene at the beginning where, you know, like his class and like everybody did bad on the test except for our main character, right? And
everyone gets a D and an F and like D minuses and F minuses, and the only one that gets a passing grade is the main character, and it's like a B minus. And so
then everybody talks about wanting to take a retake, and he says, all right, I do a retake, it's going to have new stuff on it. And then of course is Angus, right, the main character? He's like, well, open your books to chapter 6. He's like, we're starting Christmas. Like, our parents are already here. Like, for most of us.
It's the last day of school before Christmas break, which is very true. That usually classes are like, they're short, they're half-assed. They're like, all right, we know you guys aren't, like, you're not even here mentally. And so they think they're getting out of class. And he's like, all right, open your books. We're going to start a new chapter. And Angus is like, what?
Of course, he tells everybody that like the makeup test is now gone because Angus doesn't want to start new content or whatever. But it's basically it's in New England. It's 1970. It's all boys private high school. You know, we could tell it's one of those academies where senators send their kids and things like that. They kind of talk about that. And Christmas is about to start. Like everybody's going to go on Christmas break. And the teacher that's supposed to stay back with the students that don't have anywhere to go fakes that his mom has lupus and basically gets out of having to do it. So they ask Paul Giamatti's character to do it because he has nothing to do anyway. He has no family,
he has
nobody.
No family, nothing.
It's just him. And so he ends up staying, right? It's there's 5 students, 2 younger ones, and then 3 like of the older age. And Angus is one of them. And that was kind of very last minute. His mom decides to take a honeymoon with her new husband. You know, there's some backstory there, but you don't know what yet.
Yeah.
She calls him last minute and says they're not coming to get him.
The day that he thinks he's going home for Christmas break.
They're going without him. And so, of course, he's pissed now, right? Because he's already kind of this angsty, I've got a bad attitude kind of student.
Yeah.
But anyway, there's a little backstory with the like headmaster or whoever, the head of the school, and how Paul Giamatti had failed like some senator's son, and he wasn't able to get into like Cornell or something like that. And so they already don't like him. Even the staff doesn't like him at this point because of these things.
Yep.
Then there's Mary, who's the head cook, right? And she's played by Divine Joy Randolph. And her story is that her son was in Vietnam and he was killed. And it's recent, right? So she doesn't have anything for Christmas, so she's staying too because her family, her sister had invited her to come see her. She didn't want to go because she didn't feel like it was right to have a good Christmas because she'd lost her son and all that. Anyway, so they're the leftover. They're the holdovers, right? That's who's staying behind. The whole story, I mean, like, I'm watching this movie and I have just a smile on my face the entire time. I'm enjoying every second of it.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying the characters. I'm enjoying the things that are happening. Basically, all the students get to go. One of them's dad is super rich and basically says he's going to take all these boys skiing, but they can't get a hold of Angus's parents. So then Paul Giamatti, Mary, and Angus have to stay at the school. Yeah. And all the other 4 boys go. So it's just the 3 of them, basically. And the janitor's there, but he's not in a bunch of scenes. He's, just here and there, in and out. So we have our main trio through the primary, the most of this movie. And the acting by every single one of them is phenomenal.
Yeah,
like,
it's freaking good.
It's lights out.
Yeah, their acting is great, and the setting itself, like, they go so well together. Like, it's it's this like, it's not a college. It's like you said, it's technically like a private high school. Feels like a small college.
Right.
It's over Christmas break. It's like, so it's snowy. Everything's covered in snow. It feels like this big, giant, empty campus with these three people staying there. And they do a great job of like capturing that, of feeling like they're the only ones at this giant campus for this Christmas break or this little bit of a break. And the cinematography with that, I think, was really good. They did a good job of like, of just capturing that. It wasn't, it was less like close up stuff, a lot of kind of big drawn back scenes while they're having their moments. And I don't know, like you said, I had a smile on my face the whole time too. It was a different movie, but it was just like so enjoyable. Like you said, I just wanted more. I just wanted it to keep going. Like, okay, where's this going? Characters are funny. At one point, there's actually a part that I was like fucking dying laughing at. I can't remember why or how it starts, but the kid is running away from Paul Giamatti in the campus, like trying to get away from him. And they had mentioned at one point that they had just redone the floors in the gym, like so they weren't supposed to go in the gym. And he's like running from Paul Giamatti, and he stops at the door at the gym, and he looks back at him. He's trying to run away from him, and he's like, "Don't you do it!" And he fucking takes off through this gym and jumps on like the gymnastics little
Like it's a
trampoline
vault.
spring vault.
Yeah.
And he like does this crazy like suicide dive off this trampoline and falls and lands on what I thought was like cushions. And he's like starts screaming bloody murder immediately. And he gets up like holding his arm. And I thought he was joking. I like watching, I thought he was trying to like fuck with the professor, with Walleye. And then you realize, oh no, he actually is fucking hurt.
And Paul Giamatti's like, oh fuck,
Yeah,
I'm screwed.
He starts freaking out because now he's like, I'm in trouble. And he takes him to the, just they're bantering when they're going to the doctor or the hospital. What his shoulder is like fucked up. His arm popped out of the socket, but it's like it looks all gnarly. They're both trying to talk through like, oh my god, my parents are gonna kill me. Like, we don't have insurance. Like, they're gonna kill me. And Paul Giamatti's like, I'm gonna get fired because of you. Like, it was just, I don't know why I thought that part was so funny, but just when he jumps on it and smashes his arm and starts screaming.
Like, he makes up this like story at the hospital so that they don't have to file for insurance, that Paul Giamatti's his dad and him and his mom don't get along, and he doesn't want to ruin Christmas with his dad because he doesn't want his mom to find out about this and blah blah blah. And it works out because then Paul Giamatti's not going to get in trouble, and then the kids' parents aren't going to find out and things like that. And that scene really sets up the dynamic of what happens in the back half of the movie, right? Like that sets up everything that happens, because now they have this mutual understanding with one another, right? Like they've kind of come to terms with things. I don't want to go blow by blow with everything else that happens in the movie, but it leads to some more dramatic stuff. You find out more about Paul Giamatti's character. You find out that Angus's dad is actually in a in Boston. They end up traveling to Boston. They treat it like it's a field trip, right? They go to the museums and stuff. They go to the movies. Angus keeps trying to escape. He keeps trying to get away. Paul Giamatti thinks he's just going to run away, right? And he knows that if that happens, he's going to get fired. Well, it turns out what it is he wants to go visit his dad. And Paul Giamatti the whole time thinks his dad's dead.
Yeah.
When it turns out he's actually in a mental institution. And they don't really go into, they basically say like it happened just over a couple of years. It happened quick, and he became very aggressive and really didn't know who everybody was and things like that. But you find out like he hadn't got, his mom wouldn't let him go see his dad, like would never let him go see it. So this is the first time he's seen his dad in years, and his dad obviously isn't all there, and it's very upsetting and things like that. But that it kind of builds on the relationship Paul Giamatti and Dominic Sessa's character develop throughout the course of the movie, right? They kind of even Paul Giamatti softens, right? Like
Yep.
he kind of softens up a little bit. He tells, Dominic says his character certain things about him, why he is the way he is, things that have happened to him. They run into like somebody he went to school with at Harvard. Turns out he got kicked out because somebody had plagiarized off of him, but it was somebody whose parents were powerful, and so he got kicked out of school, and really developed this awesome backstory that just it really just builds on their character and the relationship. It felt so genuine watching this movie that these two really hated each other at the beginning of this movie, and then by the end of this movie, like they're very much friends. Like I don't want to say father and son, but I want to say like uncle and nephew kind of. Like that's the way it feels when they get to the end of this movie.
I would honestly, like, in terms of like relationship, I think of this because I worked in higher ed, but I feel like we all, if you went to college or maybe even high school, like we all have like one professor that we connected with, or that was like that was a mentor of mine, or like that was my favorite professor that I connected with and felt like I could go to, or they got me. Not necessarily like, oh, it's just my favorite teacher, but like someone that you feel like was more invested in character. I got more of that vibe of like they've now been through some stuff together, and now like they understand each other a lot more. At one point, he's getting in the car with him, and he's like, "Can we please roll down the window? You smell like fish. You stink like fish." At the end of the day, if I'm going to ride with you, can you please roll the window down? And then he gets in, and like the kid was just, I think, just trying to be mean, because everybody says that about his character, that he stinks and stuff. But he literally
walleye, right? He's got the eye thing, and he smells like a fish.
Yes, exactly. And then you end up finding out that he has like a bodily deficiency that causes him to smell like that. And so, like, I don't know, these little tiny moments where they're talking about him, that it made the characters come to life. Like
100%.
From then, I was only seeing Paul Giamatti as like, oh, he probably stinks right now, or like he probably smells like fish in this moment. So, and it even changes when they go. When I think they're going to a party, or maybe that was after
they go to the Christmas party. Yeah, they go to that Christmas party.
Paul Giamatti like sprays, like he's like Glade. Really going hard in the paint with Glade in his armpits, and it was it had more weight to it, because we knew like, oh, he's, because he wants to impress his girl, and he probably smells like fish because it's later in the day, and he said the later in the day the worse it gets. So anyways, that's not really relationship wise, but those are like the things that I thought like they just did a really good job with the movie of bringing the characters to life and giving them character. Then they go to the Christmas party, and the cook has, because at that point you don't know what's going on with her, but something is, they're at a Christmas party, everything's fine, and then the kid goes and grabs Walleye and is like, hey, something's wrong with her, you got to come into the kitchen. And she's just like crying in the kitchen uncontrollably at this random person's house. And then so they know something's wrong, and then they go and you find out more, or maybe they had figured out, maybe I just didn't see it at that point.
They had talked about it at the beginning during the church scene before all the kids went off to school, about her son being dead. Part. So they talked, you knew about that, but she's coped with it throughout the movie until that scene. And she's like in charge of, she made herself in charge of the Christmas music, and she was only playing the stuff that her son liked. And like some of the other people at the party were like, can we listen to something else? And she's like, no. And and they're like, okay. She has a breakdown. She gets drunk. It's very, and it's the way this movie is. It's like, it's funny 2/3 of the time, and then there's things like this, right, that happen,
for sure,
and they get put in there, and they seem like they're very powerful moments in the movie, because you like I said, you're almost like you're watching this movie with a smile on your face, and then this stuff happens, and you're like, oh yeah, this is more of a, it's got some drama to it. And there's some gut punch scenes in this movie. Like the part where Giamatti's at the liquor store buying liquor, and he's telling Dominic Sessa's character about getting kicked out of Harvard and what that did to his life, and how he lies and tries to pretend that it didn't happen. And it's so great. And each one of these three people is where the story focuses on. It's, it feels like the main part of the relationships, the teacher and the student. Mary's there is kind of like another character, but there's so much to her with the sister, and the sisters have a baby on the way. And these three really are all going through something. And you really don't find out Angus's until the part with the dad towards the end, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't really find out everything that he's going through, but you'd picked up on it. He's left behind at Christmas. He's the only one that's there because nobody can get a hold of his mom. He's not allowed to see his dad. And then you kind of find out at the end that when he went to see his dad, he had actually taken him a snow globe that I think he had taken from that Christmas party, right? And there's other scenes in between, right? There's some happy scenes, there's some dramatic scenes, there's other stuff, but this is kind of the moment where the movie kind of comes full circle. He had taken his dad a snow globe. Apparently he had tried to assault somebody with it. Then he has to go to a different institution or hospital or home or whatever. His mom shows up at the school with the stepdad. They question Paul Giamatti about it because Angus had already been in several different schools. He has on his last chance, you find out. And if he fails again, screws up, he's going to military academy.
Yep.
And Paul Giamatti basically, at this point, realizes that the mom and the stepdad don't care at all for this boy. And he needs somebody to advocate for him because he's very bright and he has a very bright future. But military school's not it.
Yeah, yep.
And so Paul Giamatti says it was his idea to go see the dad. And he loses his job. But Angus gets to stay in school. And he what does he call the headmaster when he's right after he gets fired and he's like, you did this to yourself? And he says, you're like the walking personification of a penis or something. And it's like the most perfect line, and it's hilarious coming out of his mouth.
Yeah. Which there's a little bit of backstory there. That's because the principal was Walleye's student at one point. It was like his first class or first year as a teacher.
Right. Yeah, everything's connected. Like there's all this stuff. Everything has a story to it. But man, it's good. Man, this movie's good.
It's a good movie.
I think everybody should watch this like immediately. It could be on your Christmas movie list going forward too if you want to watch a good Christmas movie.
Yeah.
But you can watch this movie at any time. Like I really think so. It's one of those we were just talking about, in the 6 to Midnight, the critics versus audience scores when it comes to movies sometimes, and this is one of those ones that they match up.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody liked this movie. I think out of all the 10 Best Picture nominees, it had the highest Rotten Tomatoes score. I think it was 97%.
Oh, wow.
Holdovers was, which I think is spot on.
Yeah. Yes.
Basically, Paul Giamatti leaves at the end of the movie. Dominic Sessa's character goes back to school. New semester starts. That's kind of where the movie ends. Paul Giamatti's starting something new for the first time, and it's, interesting. Like I said, I can't recommend this movie enough. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm going to watch it again, but man.
It's a 9. This movie was a 9 for me. It's a good fucking movie.
I'm going to give it a 10.
Oh, let's go.
I mean,
you never do that.
I've never given a 10 on the show. I've never done it. And this is the first time that I watched a movie that we did, and I was like, that's going to go on my all-time movies list.
Oh, wow. Let's go, Giamatti.
Loved it that much.
Would you ever have guessed that the Rhino from Spider-Man 2 would make this fucking great of a movie?
No. And I remember when I saw the trailer for this the first time, I'm like, oh, that looks like an Alexander Payne movie.
Yeah. Yep.
And when I watched this the other night, I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, do you want to watch this movie? And she's like, oh, isn't that Alexander Payne's movie? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, his movies are kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, they are. I think about Schmidt and like, yeah, they're kind of weird, And then, no, it's great. It's
a good
absolutely
movie.
fantastic.
10. You gave it a 10. Love that.
Yeah.
I love that for you. Damn it, I should have given it a 10. I'm giving it a 9 because I don't think I will watch that movie maybe 1 or 2 times more.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say is like, I've talked about my thought process. Like a 10 means there's nothing wrong with the movie, right?
Yes.
Like it's perfect. Like it's a perfect movie. The setting, the cinematography, the acting, the editing, the writing, the directing, the music,
crushed it.
There's nothing wrong with this movie.
Yeah.
I have no problems with it. There is nothing I want to pick on. And so that's where I'm like, I can't give it anything less.
It is rare when when I'm like watching our movies for these episodes, and like only a couple minutes in, I immediately like text my brother. Was like, you have to watch this movie. Like the way that it opens up, and it feel like they did the 1970s kind of opening, like all of the pre-movie kind of advertisement stuff is all like 70s vibe, and it feels like this just cool movie. Love that.
I texted my wife a half hour into it and I said, you made the wrong decision. Yeah, like you should be watching this.
Yeah, you're gonna
and it never faltered throughout the movie either. And that's kind of what I'm getting at is like, I'm waiting for the ball to drop. I'm waiting for the part where I'm not going to like it anymore. Or there's going to be something I'm going to dislike about the movie. And it never happened.
Yeah.
I thought the ending was perfect.
Yep.
I thought it ended exactly the way it should have ended for every character. I didn't think like they left anybody out. I felt like they told everybody's story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. Like, I haven't, and like anybody who's counting, right? Like when we did like 5 favorite movies of the year, we did that before I watched this movie.
Yeah, this would have been on your list, probably at the
top of my list as of right now. I have been like ringing the Oppenheimer bell all year.
Yep.
And I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan, right?
Yep.
We know that. Man.
Yeah.
And they're so different in scale and everything, right? Like,
for sure.
It's, again, maybe cinematic achievement wise, Oppenheimer's still it.
Yeah.
But just as a movie,
do you think it could sneak in and steal the Best Picture?
No, I don't. Do I think Paul Giamatti could sneak in and steal Best Actor from Cillian Murphy? Yes, I do.
Oh, how great would that be?
I think he could. I really think there's a chance.
Great.
It's probably not going to happen, but man, it could.
Yeah.
It really could.
The movie had so much heart,
Yes.
It had a ton of heart. I don't want to call it a feel good movie because there's a lot of sad, but it was like a feel for movie. Like you felt for them like throughout. You really like, I don't know, like the chef when she had like her breakdown out of nowhere in the party because she had lost someone. Like, I know that can hit at any moment, at any time. And it defines what you do and how you act at all times. So she just did a great job of capturing that.
The whole movie.
Yeah, the entire movie. So it was just not just her. Everyone was great. But I'm a huge Paul Giamatti fan. I freaking love Giamatti.
I've always enjoyed Paul Giamatti. Again, like we're going to talk about him more in a minute, but boy, there's a lot of movies of his that I haven't seen, and there's movies of his that I've seen where I haven't liked him in it. Not because it's just because that was the character. Like I like think Sideways, and I'm like, oh, he's such a Or I still call Paul Giamatti pig vomit sometimes from Private Parts, which is like his first big screen role. I still call him pig vomit, but
oh my god,
like he's I don't want to use like terms, but like this is he's almost a revelation in this movie. Like he really is.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing how good he is, and it's like this part was written for him, like, and nobody else could have done it, kind of deal. And it's crazy. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, he's the perfect actor for the role that this character was. If that makes sense.
It is, because he's always been that, like, he's the I don't want to use the term like schlub, but he's like
he's always the side character.
He is, and he's always he's an odd looking dude that it's him. That's who he is, and he's great.
He doesn't scream main character vibes, but boy can he, because we'll talk about another movie that he was the main character in that I fucking love, and I have loved him ever since. So
yeah,
great, love that. You gave it a 10.
Yeah. I know.
10.
It was so hard for me too. I want you to know that was extremely hard for me to do.
I love it. Yeah, because I think at some point we've had that convo about you and tens and how you're like, it will be rare if ever that I give a 10 out. So that says a lot about it. So
because I feel like a 10 means there's nothing wrong with the movie, and it's one of the greatest movies of all time. And for right now, after watching this, and maybe it's recency bias, but that's where it's at.
Yeah. Which is crazy to think, like, man, a movie that came out last year that you would consider one of the best movies of all time would not be the best movie of last year in terms of great best picture at the Oscars. It's wild. It's interesting how all this stuff works. But obviously there's reasons for that. Why don't we jump into
my favorite segment? There can be only 5.
Only 5.
That never gets old. So my list this week was top 5 dramedies, which is exactly what this movie is. So
yes,
which is a comedy that's got some drama in it, or a drama with some funny parts.
It's what a hard, like, not hard, giggity, but like there's so much gray area there that, like, sure. I went back and forth on so many movies. My list could be totally different in 24 hours, depending on the mood that I'm in. But
right, and it really kind of depends too on what you view as a dramedy. And do you feel like that should be a movie that's more comedic with some dramatic parts in it, or a dramatic movie that has some funny parts in it? So it's really, just like anytime we do a list, it's open to interpretation. So here are my top 5 dramedies. And number 5, I had Good Will Hunting.
Ooh, nice.
Which I think is a fantastic, very small scale movie. Mm-hmm. Obviously, was the movie that basically we got Matt Damon and Ben Affleck from, right?
Yep.
Robin Williams won an Oscar for it. It's fantastic. He's amazing. He's always been in it. He's always been amazing. Probably his best role, one of at least. He's perfect in it because he captures the dramedy to a T with that character. Great movie, all time. Obviously won a bunch of awards, but Good Will Hunting. And number 4, I had Big Fish. You ever seen Big Fish?
Is that Ewan McGregor?
It is Ewan McGregor. Yeah. So it's a Tim Burton movie, which I don't know if a lot of people know that, because it's not dark, right? And everybody thinks Tim Burton's movies are all dark. But it's basically about a man and all the tall tales his father used to tell him when he was growing up.
I remember it was story related.
It is. It's a very father and son movie, and basically the father, I think he's ill, and he has a kind of a tough relationship with his son, and it's all these tall tales and far-fetched ideas and things like that. It's really well done. I've always really liked that movie. When I first saw it, it was another one of those movies. I just really liked it from the get-go. I thought it was underrated. But Big Fish, yeah. At number 3, I had As Good as It Gets, with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt, Greg Kinnear. I think Cuba Gooding Jr. is in that. Like, it's one of those movies. Some dramatic parts in it. For the most part, there's a lot of drama based, but Jack's character is nuts in that movie, and he's hilarious in it. And I believe he won an Oscar for it, and I think Helen Hunt did too. And boy, they're both just spot on, and it's hilarious and obviously dramatic at the same time. But I always really enjoyed the movie. I think James L. Brooks did it. As Good as It Gets. It's some of the funniest one-liners from Jack in that movie. It's hilarious, and
I don't know why. I mean, because that movie came out when I was a kid, but like. I don't know why, but I remember that movie like distinctly. Like it was like an instant classic movie when it came out. Like,
yeah, it was really good.
One of his all-time best.
And James L. Brooks, like he's was big into comedies, obviously producer wise and stuff. So yeah, right up there. And then at number 2, I had The Truman Show, which I was always a big fan of. I think it's Jim Carrey's best movie. I've always enjoyed that movie. I think it's great. I think he was fantastic in it. Basically his whole life's like filmed like it's a reality TV show, but he doesn't know, everybody else does. It's all scripted. It's wild. If you've never seen it, like it's one of those movies I think everybody needs to watch. It's like if you had the whole world revolves around him, and then he realizes what's going on, and then it's basically like you have the choice to stay and do this and be like the most famous person on the planet, or you leave and what's out there for you. And, he obviously makes a choice at the end to see what's out there because he's never seen it before. Right. And it's crazy and it's wild and it's an awesome movie if you've never seen it.
It's great, especially like because how many of us are like, you ever have that thought where you're like, am I living in a movie? Is this the Matrix? Yeah. Like, and this was like
living in a simulation.
You really are. So if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. What a great fucking movie.
It's a great movie. Some of those parts too, where he's like, who the fuck are you talking to? Because he's realizing like, who are you talking to?
Who are you looking at?
It's great. He's awesome in that movie.
Or the moments where because they do a good job in that movie of like doing like routine and then going back to where he typically would do his routine, and him pointing out the like every day at this exact same time this exact guy with that newspaper walks by. Like
it's the whole process of the movie when he's figuring stuff out. It's awesome. You're right. It's great
fucking movie.
And then number 1, I had The Holdovers.
Oh, The Holdovers. That's gonna make 2 lists, I think, today for someone in this room. Love that. The Holdovers just jumped right up.
It's a 10.
Yeah, it's gotta be, right? That's fucking great. Well, I love that list because it's very different than mine. But also for all valid points and movies that I do enjoy. I actually like all those movies that you mentioned. I have for my top 5 dramedies, I would say of all time, but of all time in the moment that I was looking at this list, because there are movies out there that could probably be on this list that I forgot about. But in the moment, this is what I went with. I had number 5, The Terminal. This is a movie with Tom Hanks where he is from like a small Eastern European country, and then he gets there's a civil war starts or happens with his country when he's in the New York at JFK airport. And because of like what the war does, like puts his country in whatever, I can't remember like the exact wording for it, but essentially he's not allowed to leave. He's not allowed to travel anywhere. Like his country's not recognized. And so he can't like leave the airport and he can't like fly out. So he literally is living in the terminal, and it's a great movie. I don't think a lot of people talk about that movie for Tom Hanks, but he does, like, he's got this great accent. He's goofy as hell. He does goofy stuff throughout the movie, But then he does some like really heartfelt moments where he like saves a guy from getting deported because he like has the guy say that the drugs that he's bringing in, this guy's getting arrested because he's like essentially smuggling drugs into the country because his dad is dying. And Tom Hanks is like they bring Tom Hanks in to be the translator because he's the only one that speaks this guy's language. So and none of the security or the head of the airport know the language. So they're trying to deport this guy, throw him in jail, and then out of nowhere, Tom Hanks is like, "No, I read it wrong. Like these drugs aren't for his dying dad. They're for sick dad. It's for sick goat." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Say it again." I forget the name of the actor that plays the bad guy in the movie. He was the personal assistant in Devil Wears Prada, the gay guy, bald guy.
Stanley Tucci?
Yes, he's so freaking good with Tom Hanks in this movie. But anyways, he's like, no, the drugs are for goat. They're for goat. And then Stanley Tucci gets really upset because he then starts quoting, "You're saying this is goat because you read, book 3 page blah blah blah, that section that says like if drugs are for an animal, that's okay to bring them in. They don't have to be regulated or whatever." So then instead of the guy getting deported, they have to let him free and he gets to go and save his dad. Anyways, it's a good movie and a good moment in the movie Terminal. I talked too long about that. That's my number 5, Tom Hanks' Terminal. Number 4, A Knight's Tale.
Oh,
we talked about it earlier and I'm like, I'm gonna bump a movie out and slide a movie in. Giggity.
It's a good movie.
A Knight's Tale. What a freaking cool movie. When that first trailer dropped, like, how cool is it? We're like, oh my God, we're getting a jousting movie where they have like We Will Rock You, like playing in like the medieval crowd. They're doing they're throwing like beach ball stuff around in the crowd. Like, what is this movie?
My daughter would love that movie.
It's such a good movie. Like, I know we talk about the Joker for Heath Ledger as like hit one of his best moment ever, but man, A Knight's Tale is the best movie that he's the main character in. It's such a good movie. We were talking about it earlier because of the other guy, the dude who does Sir Liechtenstein's like entrances.
Paul Bettany plays Chaucer.
Yeah, and he does like the fucking coolest intros for him during these jousting things. But anyways, A Knight's Tale, my number 4 Dramedies. Great fucking movie.
And I forgot Alan Tudyk's in it too.
Yes, Alan Tudyk's in it, and then who's the other? They're all playing like his squire, like his pit crew team. The big dude who
Mark
plays
Addy.
Robert Baratheon.
Yeah, Mark Addy.
That's what Robert Baratheon's name is. His real name is.
Yeah, he was in the Full Monty. He was like the main character in that, and then he was he played Fred Flintstone in like one of those.
Oh shit! Yeah,
movies.
He did play Fred Flintstone in the
one
second
of them.
one. Yep.
Yeah, Viva Rock That's Vegas true. Or whatever. Yeah.
Wow, what a callback!
Yeah.
Hey, I don't care what people say. I love the first Flintstones. John Goodman as freaking Fred Flintstone was
at the time. It was great. Yeah, and Rick Moranis was Barney. It was awesome.
Freaking. Anyways, wow, I haven't thought about that movie in literally 20 years. It's great. And my number 3 movie, Birdman. This is kind of felt more on the drama side, less of the comedy, but
it's got some funny parts in it though.
And I feel like this movie is the reason why we got Batman, like why we got Batman back, was Michael Keaton's playing essentially. He's playing his Batman. It's like a parody on his life,
right?
That he is like he was a famous superhero, Birdman, in movies. And now this is later in his life as an actor. But that movie and that franchise was his his opus, magnum opus. Like that's what.
And then he made some other movies, and then his flame fizzled out a little bit. And
so
very much Michael Keaton's career trajectory. Yeah.
Yes, and then he comes back to be the Birdman. It ends fucking super weird and very like it's open ended. So like, did he fly away or did he just die? Like, did he like? We don't know. But
It's a good
Birdman,
movie though.
it's a
It's a
great
good one.
freaking movie. If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it.
It's a good movie. I think it
My
won
number
Best
two.
Picture too at the Oscars that year. I
Mm-hmm.
think it was a Best Picture winner. Yeah.
Yep. So, who I think who's the girl that's in it? Is it Jennifer Lawrence? Who's the fuck? I can't remember who's the
Edward Norton's the bad guy.
Yes, gosh, it's I haven't seen that in such a long time, but man, what a like cool concept for a movie. My number 2 movie, Tom Hanks coming back, Forrest Gump. I have as my number 2 dramedy. I thought there were a ton of funny moments where where how many Dr. Peppers did he drink,
Yeah.
and he's got to go pee, and run Forrest run, he freaking runs a kick return right out of the back of the end zone, and like maybe a little bit more on the drama side, less on the comedy, but I felt like there was enough funny moments throughout that entire movie that and then obviously very serious moments in that movie. It's great. Forrest Gump is one of the best movies of all time. I'll say it. What? You don't like Forrest Gump?
I have a problem with Forrest Gump.
What? Tell me everything.
Okay, here's my deal with Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump's not a bad.
Oh my god.
Forrest Gump's not a bad movie. Okay.
Oh, don't you dare! This movie is.
It's not a bad movie. Forrest Gump came out in 1994.
Okay.
And Forrest Gump won all the awards.
Well deserved.
It was nominated for all these awards up against Pulp Fiction and the Shawshank and the Shawshank Redemption.
Can you believe we got Forrest Gump and Shawshank in the same year?
And Pulp Fiction.
What? Well, Pulp Fiction is an acquired taste. I'm not a big fan of it.
I think it's a masterpiece.
10 out of 10?
No, it's not.
What? So masterpiece is
Shawshank's a 10 out of 10. But
Shawshank is technically rated the greatest movie of all time.
It's a golden 11.
It is so good. It is so good.
That's my problem with Forrest Gump. It's not Forrest Gump's fault. It's not Forrest Gump's fault, but I've always had a problem with that movie because of it. And I read the book, and the movie's nothing like the book.
Oh my God! Stop being that person who's like, it's not like the book. Lord of the Rings wasn't good.
No. Here's the deal. No. That's totally different. Like Lord of the Rings left out like a scene that people got mad about. Forrest Gump like rewrote the book. But the book's bad. It's a bad book. It's not good. It's not a good read. The sequel's even worse, and I'm glad they never made a sequel to the movie because the second book is terrible. It's fucking awful.
I did not know anything about the book, so I don't have that to drag this perfect movie down. And also, you can't. I see where you're coming from because if you felt like you liked other movies that year, that this took everything out. I have had that multiple times where like a movie wins Best Picture. I'm like, how did that win when this movie existed?
Right.
Get out of here. And so I could see that biased hate in your heart. But
I don't hate the movie.
But
I own the movie. It's
in
just
its own world. It's the best movie that's depicted the Vietnam War ever in terms of like what warfare looked like and what that was like. That is fact. Google it. They will say that Forrest Gump showed what the Vietnam War looked like and felt like better than any movie. I will say that even over Platoon, even over fucking Good Morning Vietnam. I'll say it. Fight me on it. This is going to be a short that's going to go on YouTube. I'm going to get totally wrecked on it. Like when they fly in and Lieutenant Dan's like in the shower and he's like walking them through and like telling them how things, they hand him the toilet paper while he's in the little tiny pop-up shower and all of that stuff. Then they go through like the rain. I think like I always want to compare it to the movie We Are Soldiers, where like Forrest Gump, you felt like you were in Vietnam and war. Like he's climbing through foxholes and shit. We Were Soldiers felt like they were filming in like the hills in LA. Like you didn't get Vietnam vibes at all because they did film that in LA.
Okay.
Anyways, That's not where this is going. Forrest Gump is a great movie. It's my number 2 fucking best dramedy of all time. I can't believe that you don't agree with me. My number 1 dramedy, The Truman Show. Wow. What a freaking movie. I won't jump into any of it because we've talked about it, but it was my number 1 dramedy. It is a very good movie. It is Jim Carrey's best movie of all time.
Yes.
Personally.
Agreed.
It's so good. Seaside. That my wife and I got married in Destin, Florida, which is like 20 minutes away from the town that they filmed that. So when we were there for our honeymoon, we checked out Seaside, and literally like everything that's, I forget the name of the actual town, but it's close to Destin, Florida. It is like ripped directly from the movie, or directly from, like, they didn't touch it at all. So you feel like you're in the Truman Show when you're there. But yeah, my number 1, Truman Show. All right.
Dig it.
Let's jump into my list. Let's go top 5 Paul Giamatti movies of all time. I will take the lead on this one. My number 5, I broke the rules on my own list. I said, let's do top 5 Paul Giamatti movies. And I wish we would have done top 5 Paul Giamatti performances.
Did you put John Adams on there?
Because I have number 5, Paul Giamatti in John Adams.
Jesus.
Because my God, I don't know if you ever watched this.
Yeah,
I didn't know it existed until after I saw Hamilton. And when I saw Hamilton, I was like, I gotta know more about John Adams. They make him like a bad guy, and then I'm like, wait, Paul Giamatti played fucking John Adams? I gotta see the other side of the argument here. And
yeah,
he's so freaking good.
He's amazing.
So good in that show. It is an HBO show for those of you who want to know. Justin, I know you're out there listening. Go watch it. It's not very many episodes. It's 1 season.
It was a mini series. Yeah, it was a mini series. It wasn't even like a show, technically.
Yeah. It's so good. He looks more like Benjamin Franklin, which I actually think he just did a movie as Benjamin Franklin, but the movie hasn't come out yet.
No.
Anyways, but John Adams, number 5. Number 4, Paul Giamatti performance. The Illusionist.
Nice.
I don't know if you've seen that movie. A lot of people don't even know it exists because it came out the same year as
Prestige.
The Prestige. It is essentially just like The Prestige. The Illusionist is about a magician back in the Victorian era times.
It's magic.
It has
Norton. Edward Norton's in it.
Norton is the main magician actor in it. And Paul Giamatti plays like the detective. He's the bad guy trying to like take down Edward Norton. And there's this amazing scene at the end when he thinks he's got Edward Norton like figured out, and then he's about to arrest him. And Edward Norton, just in the nick of time, gets on the train to leave. And as he's doing that, Paul Giamatti starts like all of the little freaking pins with the red yarn all make sense to him, and he's like starting to unveil everything, and it's this really cool scene that Paul Giamatti crushes. He's great in that movie. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. My number 3, The Holdovers, for the entire episode that we've talked about. It's so good. It is almost his best performance ever. You should see it immediately after you watch this episode. Number 2. My number 2 and number 1 were actually pretty close. Like, they could have been interchangeable, but I felt like the number 1 had to be number 1. These next 2 movies are actually 2 of my favorite movies of all time, which is probably why I have like such a freaking 6 to midnight for Paul Giamatti. But number 2, this is a movie that is so underrated and doesn't get the love that it deserves. But Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe. It's back in Depression era boxing movie where this freaking semi-famous boxer, champion at one point, down on his luck. He's basically forced to retire because he sucks. And and loses everything because it's the Great Depression. And then Paul Giamatti is his manager and coach. And so something happens. They need a last minute replacement. Paul Giamatti brings him in and brings him back for this one fight. And then that one fight turns into two. And then it turns into him going and winning the world championship. And it's such a, what a powerful movie. Makes me tear up every single time. And there is this amazing scene where Paul Giamatti is, he, just because Russell Crowe's character retired from fighting, Paul Giamatti's didn't. He's still semi-involved. And so they think that the wife of Russell Crowe thinks that Paul Giamatti and his family are still living large and rich during the Great Depression while they're in the gutter. And she goes over to give them peace of her mind and then opens up the apartment, and Paul Giamatti and his wife, they live in this super fancy downtown New York apartment, but it's empty. They just have like a chair and a table. And there's just this really powerful moment there with Paul Giamatti and his wife and the other wife. And then another one where they're going and so-and-so's trying to beg for money. Paul Giamatti talks them all into like give this guy a chance. It's so good. Giamatti's so great when he says pop, pop, bam. Like, it's just a cool thing. I don't know why I'll forever remember Paul Giamatti for that little pop, pop, bam. It's a great movie. Go see it. It better be on your list. Number one, this movie is in my top 5 movies of all time. Cinderella Man's one of my favorite movies ever, but I'm not going to put it in my top 5. This movie is. I don't know how I stumbled into this at the movie theater. It was one of those days where my brother and I were going, I don't know if you did this, but we would go see a movie and then we would stay and walk into another movie and just watch. Because back in the day, you didn't have to buy assigned seats. It was just a big open auditorium. You could pick your seats. And so we would go to a movie, we'd get all weird, we'd go to the bathroom, and then we'd like sneak into another. And I think my brother and I were going to try to sneak into like a superhero movie, and the fuzz was everywhere. Like all of the freaking like movie security were around. They probably had no idea we were there, but we in our heads were like, fuck, like we got to go into something. So we walked into this movie, and I proceeded to watch this M. Night Shyamalan movie called Lady in the Water. And it is so underrated and gets so much hate because nobody understands what this movie is actually about. Or at least they think it's about fantasy and it was a horrible fantasy movie, but it's really about like loss and dealing with that. And they do a freaking great job of sprinkling in like, what if there was like magic and fantasy stuff out there, but it's super grounded and it's just a super cool movie. Paul Giamatti plays like the landlord of a tiny, shitty little apartment complex. And all of the characters that live in the apartment complex are super quirky and goofy and weird and have like just really out there characteristics. A random girl just shows up in his pool and like from what he thinks is drowning, he saves her, like brings her in, doesn't know where she's from or what's going on. Turns out that she's a sea nymph from like the land underwater, and he thinks she's crazy and not real. And the movie proceeds to have like a lot of mystical kind of magical moments to makes you think that actually might be real. And Paul Giamatti, as he's like unpulling the strings, you find out it might be real. But he has such powerful moments at the late towards the end. You find out that like he used to be like a super wealthy like professor or something, and his wife and kids died and he couldn't save them. And that's what has caused like his quirks. He's got a weird stutter through the movie, but like this thing with this mermaid girl that he's trying to save and get her back. The whole purpose of the movie is like trying to get her back to her home. And it's like this redemption for him of him saving someone because he couldn't save his family. But anyways, Lady in the Water is so freaking good. I fucking love that movie. It's a movie I suggest to everyone to watch. I make all my friends watch it. Sometimes they like it. Oftentimes people are like, oh, this is like a goofy fantasy, shitty, like, so she's a mermaid and they're at an apartment complex. What? Like, they just don't get it. But if you understand what you're watching, it's fucking perfect. It is a 10 out of 10 movie. Anyways, Paul Giamatti, and he's the lead character, lead actor. He's fucking
Never
amazing.
seen that movie. I think we've talked about that before. You knew that. We've talked about it.
Oh my God.
Never seen it.
We're taking Road to El Dorado off of the list. And we're
pushing
throwing
Road to El
Lady
Dorado back again.
Oh, Road to El Dorado. I can't believe you have not seen this movie. It is so fucking good. Actually, when we get off this thing, just go watch it tonight. We don't even have to do an episode on it. I want you to see it. That's how bad I want you to see that movie.
Well, maybe. I'm already supposed to be watching something. I'll let
Anyways, you know. All right. Sorry, I took forever on my list.
No, you're good. So my top 5 Paul Giamatti performances.
Ooh, you switched it up. That's what happens when you get to be number 2.
I had it in parentheses, and then when you said it, I moved it back in the list because I wasn't going to cheat, but now I'm gonna. Nice. At number 5, I have Private Parts because this is the movie that like got Paul Giamatti on the map. Yeah. If you've never seen Howard Stern's Private Parts, it's actually hilarious. It's actually a very good movie about basically how Howard Stern came to be. The biggest problem with the movie is Howard Stern plays Howard Stern.
Yeah, it's like Howard Stern's in the movie. That's the only thing that ruins it.
Yeah, and he's funny. The movie's funny, but like basically, Paul Giamatti plays like his manager, and he refers to him as pig vomit. And there's this one scene where he's like, he's doing something with Paul Giamatti's wife, like he's got her on the air or something, and Paul Giamatti fucking loses his mind and is ready to kill him. And it's like one of the best scenes Paul Giamatti's ever been in. But like I've called him pig vomit ever since that movie came out, and that's like I'm just stuck vomit. Because that's what Howard Stern calls him in the movie. But anyway, I have that at number 5. And number 4, I actually had Sideways. I talked about this a little bit earlier. Paul Giamatti, one of his best roles. Both him and Thomas Hayden Church in that movie are like kind of despicable characters. Mm-hmm. And it's a little different. It's an Alexander Payne movie. It's a little different. But he's so good in the role. Like he really is. He's really is a good actor. Mm-hmm. This movie did a lot for Thomas Hayden Church too, because this was like right before he was Sandman. You know, like the thing he was known best for was like he was the mechanic on Wings. You know, and then he did Sideways, and then that kind of like he kind of took off after that and was Sandman and whatnot. It's just too bad that had to be what he took off into because it was one of the worst Spider-Man movies. But
I saw that there was most of the list had Sideways listed as number 1 for him.
Yeah, and I understand the thought process with that. I mean, he is pretty tremendous in that role, and I know he got nominated for some awards and stuff, and that really did kind of push his star up a little bit too when that movie came out because he showed that he could be a lead. A lead character, not just supporting. At number 3, I had John Adams.
Oh, there!
I had to move it in there because, and number 3 is where it belongs. I think. Yeah. He's so good as John Adams. He's the future president of the United States in this movie. I think Laura Linney plays his wife in the movie. She's a great actress and whatnot, but he's so good in that role as John Adams. For everything you said, it's kind of amazing performance. It is great. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely check out that miniseries. I'm sure it's on Max, but it's pretty damn good. And number 2, I had Cinderella Man.
Oh, look at those
all the things you said, right? And all the things that you said. Cinderella Man, he's so great in that role. Perfect is like the manager for Russell Crowe's character. He is. He was nominated for an Oscar for it. He's tremendous. He's such a good actor. You already kind of dove into everything about that movie, but I had that at number 2, and then obviously number 1 is The Holdovers.
There it is.
We talked about it earlier. Yes, I think he could sneak away the Oscar win here. Is he going to? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at this point because his role's so good. I think he's tremendous in the movie and would deserve every award he got. And he already won a Golden Globe, and then If you didn't see, famously, he took it to In-N-Out and he had In-N-Out burgers after the Golden Globe Awards, which I think is hilarious.
That makes me love him even more.
Did you see that picture of him?
I'm a Californian, so In-N-Out burger. No, I did not see that.
Oh man, you gotta Google Paul Giamatti In-N-Out. He's literally at a table. Somebody's taking his picture through the window in his tux.
Oh, like no one.
Oh no,
not even like his own picture. Just someone fucking snapped it of him.
And he's sitting there and he's eating In-N-Out, and the Golden Globes in between him and I don't know if it's his wife, sitting on the table at In-N-Out. It's hilarious.
That's legendary.
That's pretty fucking awesome.
Fucking legendary. God.
But yeah.
In-N-Out, that's a staple for us Californians.
But Holdovers is number one. Yeah, similar lists on that one, obviously. I haven't seen Lady in the Water. I will watch it. I've talked about that before.
Hurt. My feelings are hurt. It's a good movie.
I don't know. It won a bunch of Razzies. It must be good.
God, please watch that movie with an open mind. Unlike when you watched Blade Runner 2049 and understand.
How did you say I watched Blade Runner 2049 without an open mind?
Because if I remember right, you said you fell asleep and you didn't even finish it the first time.
No, I watched the whole thing. It put me to sleep. Boring. There's a difference between falling asleep and being lulled to sleep.
Another top 5 of all time for me, Blade Runner 2049.
Good for you.
God, those are great movies. I can't believe you haven't seen Lady in the Water, and I can't believe you're not going to watch it. Unbelievable.
Oh, do you want to save it for? We'll figure it out. We'll save it for an episode, maybe. Anyway, that brings us to the end of episode 34 of the Movie Dads podcast, the instant classic, The Holdovers. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us that like and subscribe. Click that, hit that bell, leave us a comment, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. If you're not watching us on YouTube, hopefully you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, soon to be YouTube Music, and Podcast Index. You can see some of our short clips and videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We will be back next week for episode 35, big premiere movie of the week, the new Henry Cavill starring
weird haircut version,
flat top, espionage, spy, comedy, thriller. Don't know really what it is. Argyle comes out next week. Argyle. So they're going to do that for episode number 35. And we will be back next week for that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody. Catch you next time.
Bye.